All right, I am here again with Josiah Mackenzie, who is the publisher at Hotel Operations. How are you doing today, Josiah?
I'm doing great, Chris. It's fantastic to see you again.
Josiah, you are my first repeat guest, and so I am really excited to have you back again.
I had so much fun round one. When I saw your message about jumping on again and having a conversation, I was so excited. So thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome, awesome. Well, if somebody just happened to miss episode, the episode that we talked before, do you mind just giving just a quick high level, who are you, and tell us a little bit about Hotel Operations?
Yeah, so I published hoteloperations.com, spent 15 years working in and around hotels, primarily for technology companies, got to see how tens of thousands of hotels around the globe use technology, what was working for them, what wasn't working for them, where the limitations were, where the opportunities were. And I found that great experience that we have at hotels really comes down to operations. It's how you run it, right? It's how you train your people. It's how you recruit people. It's how you use technology to provide an amazing travel experience. And so wanted to create a library of interviews, research, case studies, all about how do you run your hotels effectively. And that's what I'm doing at hoteloperations.com.
Well, if anybody has not been there and they're in the hospitality industry, they definitely need to. I probably recommend it to more people than any other site. So hopefully a lot of people are going there and get a chance to experience what you have. I will tell you that one of the reasons, the reason I have you on today is because, I was scrolling through my LinkedIn and I saw this article from you. I always love reading them. And it talks about, AI, a guide to AI in the hospitality industry. And I was joking with you earlier and I said, most of these guides are like 3 or 4 page PDFs, not a whole ton of meat. And then there's a sale in it somewhere, right? Like usually give us your information and we'll do this. I think I go to click on yours and it says 30-minute read time on the guide on LinkedIn. And so for me, I got really excited and really interested. So for anybody out there, go to either LinkedIn or hoteloperations.com and you got to look at this AI for hotels guide that Josiah's put together. I'm not going to ask you to recount all 30 minutes of the read there, Josiah, but can you give us a high level of this guide, what inspired it, and then we'll kind of jump in from there.
Yeah, happy to. And I got to tell you, I set out to write something that was a little bit shorter, wanted to do a high level intro, felt like everybody was talking about AI, got a lot of people asking me questions, what's going on here? How do I use it? So I sat down one afternoon, I'm going to write a quick little overview here, went down one rabbit hole after another. And a month later and dozens of conversations and interviews and books later, ended up with this somewhat long guide. So it's a long article. I think the reason for writing the article is there's some nuance when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence in hotels. I talked to some people and they think AI is going to save their hotels. All they got to do is plug in the robot and they're going to be crushing it, right? And you talk to some other folks and they have no idea what's coming, right? They have no idea what the opportunities are here. So the truth is somewhere in between those two extremes. And often the best way to dig into that is just having a conversation about what's going on right now. And so that's why I appreciate the chance to do that today.
Awesome. Well, I think a great place to start, right, is let's talk about maybe defining AI, artificial intelligence, right? I mean, it comes with a ton of definitions, a ton of perceptions. And so maybe we can start by defining it and talking about some of the maybe the common misconceptions around it.
Yeah. So most definitions, if you look up, Webster, for example, it's going to tell you it's going to define AI as the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. The more people I talked to and the closer I got to the technology, I found that was somewhat lacking and actually slightly misleading. And so the definition I personally find the most useful and aligns most with the AI scientists and people who are closest to the technology actually comes from Gartner, which is a technology research and consultancy. And they define AI as applying analysis and logic-based techniques, including machine learning, to interpret events, support and automate decisions to take actions. And what I like about that is the bit about logic-based techniques to interpret what's going on, and then automate decision making and the actions that are taken, right? I think a really big misconception that we have about artificial intelligence, including myself, is we imagine sort of a sci-fi future where there's robots and there's these intelligent beings. You think about, there's been so many movies where this seems to be the case, right? Where you plug AI into some kind of robotic creature,
Right.
and all of a sudden there are overlords. And so just because of the way that we've seen this in TV and movies, and there's this perception that it's more about that, but the reality is artificial intelligence is more about kind of recognition of patterns, and then automating these kind of little routine decisions. And one thing that really surprised me when I was talking to folks, and I read a number of books from AI scientists and software developers, is it's actually a fallacy that AI, which is kind of process driven and is used in fairly narrow use cases, to make this jump to general intelligence or mimicking human behavior. And so I think that's where the dictionary definition of mimicking human behavior is misleading, because in a sense it's true. It's, of course, as people, we're able to do things sequentially and make decisions. But what it leaves out is the insights, and it's the theory development, and it's the observations. And artificial intelligence cannot do that. And by definition, it won't do that. And so that's the one thing I hope to clear up about this. It's less about this kind of big, scary overlords and more about process development and better pattern recognition.
So, I mean, when you talk about AI and hospitality, I think that those almost feel like a dichotomy, right? Because people will say that, hospitality is all about people, the interactions, the experience, and that AI maybe doesn't necessarily have a prominent place in that. But, one of the things that caught me about your report, right, is, first of all, you've got a table of contents in there that just lists everything out that people are going to see inside of your report. And one of the things that caught my attention was, you've got 11 bullet points here on use cases. And so if you don't mind, I'm just going to read through them real quick. And so if you are out there in a hotel, and even if you're hotel adjacent or hospitality, kind of listen to this list of applications, because I think it's all very relevant, right? So the first one would be bookings or adjacent reservations. What you can do pre-arrival before somebody comes to your experience, when they get there or checking in. Pattern recognition through your operation, workflow optimization, attracting, retaining staff, revenue management, sourcing and procurement, waste reduction, sustainability, and cybersecurity. That's quite a list of potential applications. And while they all have human touches to it, can you maybe cherry pick a couple of these and talk about, where you see AI as part of a practical application there?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts on this. I think first off, fundamentally agree with the statement that hospitality is fundamentally human. And so the future of hospitality is actually probably more analog. It's probably more relationship and experientially driven than it is technology driven. That said, I am a big believer in the opportunity technology provides, but it's really important at a high level to be aligned around expectation setting of what this can and cannot do. Now, you went through a whole range of applications for artificial intelligence, and quite a broad range that spans many different functions. There's a reason why McKinsey actually rated hospitality and travel as the #1 industry that has the most potential of creating value with artificial intelligence. And it's because of the complexity of our industry. I had Martin Soler's a former a hotel general manager from Paris, and now as a technology leader. And he was explaining to me the unique environment that we're in hospitality, and that it's a physical product. And more than a physical product, it's actually real estate, it's a building, and then everything that goes along with that. So if you think about something like sustainability, there's applications for energy sensors and usage and planning, down to actually the environment that we're familiar with, the design. And then it's also a service experience, right? And so you have this very unique combination of elements, which means that the applications of artificial intelligence are very broad as well. I think just on that point of sustainability, I think for me, this is one of the interesting aspects, because many people have talk a lot about what is the sustainable green future of hospitality. And I think where I've been frustrated by that is what seems more like a marketing attempt. And so we'll see different press releases of different commitments at an organizational level, and those have those organizational commitments have their role, but I'm very interested in driving systemic change. And so if you think about, we're not quite there as an industry, but if you think about kind of like the smart home concept, where everything is, all of our energy consumption could have a little bit more automation or predictive intelligence behind it. Eventually, this will be possible in hotel buildings as well, right? And so, so you kind of see that on an energy use. You see it on kind of a food waste level, which is a huge issue in hospitality. And I was just at a hotel the other day, and they had a beautiful breakfast spread, but I was there almost before they closed, and I hope they were giving the food away, or to somebody in need or something. But there was just so much amazing food and just getting cleared out, and I hope that wasn't wasted. But I think there probably is a lot of food wasted in hospitality. And so again, very, very specific example, but this is where artificial intelligence becomes useful, because it's all about prediction, right? And it is all about thinking about how do we take in inputs from other systems. So our booking technology, our property management system, our revenue technology has good forecasting capabilities. And this can help us with planning not only the food that we put out there, our staffing levels, but even maybe the way that we invite people to participate in our breakfast. Maybe we offer a discount for folks that can come later and avoid the business travel rush. So there's many applications here, but I think the point I would make underpinning that is the real opportunity with artificial intelligence is empowering existing systems that we have. And I think many of us have been impressed by applications like ChatGPT, and you see a lot of stuff in social media about people asking questions. I believe the future of AI in hospitality is more about artificial intelligence empowering new capabilities within your revenue management system, within your property management system, within these different tools that you have in your stack already, versus plugging in an external app that will solve everything for your business. That's unlikely in the perspective of people that I talked with, both technology providers and hotel operators.
Yeah, and I think you covered a range of things there. And I think the one of the interesting things, and this is by no means am I knowledgeable or anything on AI other than what you know I've talked about and what was in your report and a little bit of research I've done, but hospitality has been evolving to try to connect these dots in a lot of places already, right? And if you think about, I remember when I was a front desk agent, I had to do like a dupe check, right? Like where I had to run a list of all the people in house, and then you look at it and you say, okay, which ones look like they're duplicates? Do we need to cancel the reservation, right? And then you realize that somebody figured out how to automate that, right? And then when they did figure out how to automate that, then there were also messages that went out to any potential duplicates. And that's a progression of the process. The same kind of things have happened with that kind of leap forward mentality, where some of the things like food buying compared to occupancy, compared to, and this is some people who a lot of it's manual, right? Where you look and you say, oh, I've got 40% leisure, 60% business. It's more likely than not, this is what my week is going to look like. And that's a person doing all of that right now, because to my knowledge, it doesn't exist any other place. However, this is something where if you're looking at practical applications of stitching areas together, right? Somebody who looks at a reservation, an AI that is able to look at a reservation system and be able to posit, potential use cases in departments could be very valuable, right? A 40-60 split on leisure versus business class. And that results in a pattern that we normally see. And that's sent out to the chef so that he makes sure he orders correctly, fills the buffet correctly, staffs correctly, so that we're, lights the grills at a certain time, so we stop burning as much gas. I mean, there's any amount of applications that you could play forward there. And is that, when you're talking about stitching systems together, is that kind of what you're talking about?
Absolutely right. And I think the examples you mentioned are really good use cases because anyone thinking about applying AI to their business needs to start with understanding what are the problems that we're looking to solve here. And you and I and others have seen so much interest in AI in among hoteliers over the past couple of months for a number of reasons. I think we've been impressed by some of the generative AI of ChatGPT and DALL-E and things like this. But I think more importantly, there's some kind of fundamental business problems that we have as an industry that potentially AI can help with. And so, to your point of extra staff time going through something or deduping something, obviously there's a staffing shortage that has been talked about
Right.
for extensively, but there's also a need to generate more revenue and more specifically more profits from hospitality businesses, especially as we're heading into an uncertain and economic environment, and to be able to earn the money to then reinvest into paying staff better and things like that. So I think that's why there's so much. We've had conversations with people that were about another topic and they end up about AI because people need to solve these problems, right? And so to your question, I would recommend first starting what is the problem that you have in your business. It's going to range among our listeners what they're looking to solve, but exactly as you mentioned, it's about stitching systems together and understanding to solve this problem, what inputs do we need, and then how do we establish connectivity to do that. And I think revenue management is actually an interesting example to look at because artificial intelligence on some level has been powering revenue management and revenue technology for quite some time. And the average hotel will be making, I think it's something more than 5 million decisions related to pricing every year. And there's just no way that a person can calculate all of that. So technology, good hotel revenue technology will leverage many aspects of AI for the smartest pricing to maximize revenue. It's a fantastic application. But as to do that, you need to be ingesting the right data sources. And so modern revenue systems will be pulling signals not only in the business, but externally to make those accurate predictions. And they've gotten quite good. I think it's really remarkable to look at the hotels that implement smart revenue technology and see before and after the difference is. So I think I mentioned that as an example that's actually somewhat mature, but it also points to the possibilities in other things like, planning your workflows, just staffing in general, in these other areas of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I think of what a workout Excel gets in every single hotel or most businesses I've ever been in, where people are building these formulas to try to play forward. What most of this stuff could be automated with much better information, right? I mean, I think about how many key errors ended up in extra housekeepers for the day, or just the like in decisions like that. And so I think instead of the overlord, as you mentioned earlier, right? Instead of that mentality, I think it's how can we create a better state, reduce friction, create efficiency, and really sew these departments together in a more robust way than we're currently doing to create a better bottom line, which is healthier for everybody, right?
Completely. And I mean, maybe another way of looking at this that could be helpful is just taking a moment to think about how much AI is already used in our lives today, just outside of hotels. So I use Google Maps when I'm driving around, right? And it's getting scarily good at making recommendations of just,
does yours ever call your house work? Like, does yours ever call your house work? Because mine keeps calling my house work. It's something I need to figure out.
That's when something's happening here.
Right.
But it's kind of where you start to see your technology become really smart, right? So I'll open up Maps, it will suggest I'm probably going here. Same with Uber. I open up Netflix, it's going to recommend shows or movies that are quite good. Open up Amazon, same thing. Same thing with banking. My bank has a mobile app that is making all these recommendations. Have you thought about this? It's super smart, super helpful. So just kind of think about in your own life where you start to see technology be kind of impressing you and saying, oh, this is a great user experience. And I think this is the opportunity we have in hospitality, is to provide our staff with with the same sort of thing. And you mentioned a housekeeping example. I think it's a great application, because someone was telling me, you think about how tough a job cleaning rooms is. It's really difficult, right? And one of the things that becomes annoying or time consuming or frustrating is knocking on doors, thinking the guest has left and they're actually still there, and you have to wait around, you have to go around to the next one. It slows you down, it's frustrating. And that's where connected systems could be a little smarter about that. But you could also have AI on top of those connected systems that maybe recommend an efficient sequence of cleaning or things like that. So it's really important to think about this for each job function within the hotel. I think I personally find it a little bit too high level or broad to just think about like, what is AI for hospitality? And so I like how you kind of got into housekeeping. Okay, well, like, what are all the frustrations our housekeepers have? And how can we solve some of those?
And so if I am, if I'm listening to this conversation, right, I'm going to go to your report, I'm going to read the report, I'm going to get done with it. And then, how do I start to conceptualize whether or not I think AI can have a positive impact on my operation? Because I guarantee you, anybody who works for a large corporate structure is just waiting for it to come down, because you can't do it yourself. They're not going to let you. But if you are, if you're a brand, if you're a franchise company, or you've got independence, and you're sitting here thinking to yourself, well, I can close the gap on some of these bigger companies. How do I get started? Like, how am I thinking about this right now?
Yeah, I think it goes back to like what we were chatting about a little bit earlier around just clarifying those jobs to be done, right? And thinking about where do we have pain, or where do we have inefficiency within our operations, and that requires empathy. It requires us really reconnecting to the human side of ourselves. So it's going to be conversations. It might be, tagging along with one of your teammates and just watching how they're doing their job, and trying to identify what's time consuming. You mentioned, the example of looking for duplicates or something like that. There could be a lot of things that you pick up when you just spend time with someone, or you start observing. And so, whether it's asking them straight up, spending time with them to identify where improvements could be made. And that's number one, right? Is figure out kind of what are those jobs to be done. I think then there's the imagination stage of what's possible. And so this is going to vary a little bit depending on the role that you have and where you're at, right? If you're in a R&D team at a major hotel company, you probably have all day and huge budgets to dive deep on this. And so if you're in one of those privileged positions, or you're at a technology company imagining what the future could hold, I would like people to think about what's possible instead of just how do we automate the workflow that we have today. And so, someone told me this example of like, you think about maybe your coffee maker in your home, and maybe it automates kicking off brewing a pot of coffee at when you get up in the morning, right? But what if it was connected to other systems where it was smarter, right? And there's an opportunity for technology and automation to actually provide a better experience than what we currently have today. And it's looking at your calendar and notes that you just came in off an overnight flight, you need a little extra caffeine in that coffee and brews an extra strong pot, or is something like that. And so I'd be interested to see where can we design a better than the status quo experience, and what could technology unlock that we actually can't do today, or we don't do today. And so that would be kind of the first piece of it. And then I think as it gets into implementation, some of the most successful technology implementations I've seen have this consistent theme of rolling out a small sort of pilot with people in the organization that are, there's always a couple of folks that want the new thing. They want to be first in line with a new process or something to get better at their job. And so think about working with those folks to try something. I believe on a macro level, the big opportunity is using AI internally to make staff processes more efficient than guest processes. So I would focus, if you're maybe a brand leader, like focus internally first. Think about how do we save time for our teams. I still am of the personal persuasion that hospitality is fundamentally a human to human experience. And so I think probably the future looks a lot more human to human interaction than some believe, but I think there's this massive opportunity behind the scenes to save time for staff. And if you think about like an application like chat, yes, you can provide some automated recommendations as, Yelp and Google and some of these companies already do, but I don't see that as necessarily incremental value beyond what those big tech companies can do. I think there's interesting applications behind the scenes for, you think about all the questions your associates might have about how to do their jobs, or even just internal stuff of, how many vacation days do I have left, or things like that. All that stuff could be automated through smart chat behind the scenes. And then it's about more of an employee resource as opposed to the guest interaction, which I guess I'm a bit of a holdout of trying to make that as personal and human as possible, because there's just, nothing like talking to Chris for some recommendations of what's good in the neighborhood. And it's hard for me to imagine a future world where chat provides that same level of feeling as a guest at a hotel property.
Yeah, and it's funny because you think about everywhere within the hospitality experience where and you think of like the old jokes about the airline reservationist, right? Which doesn't happen anymore. We all know that, right? But you walk up to the counter, you say hi, and they're banging away on their keyboard. Well, it's the same way at a front desk of a hotel most times, where they're just banging away on their keyboard unless you've done it, via app or whatever. And so I think that there is the ability to be able to create better processes that allow your team to actually do what you're paying them to do, which is to focus on the guest, create that memorable experience, create that interaction, and all of the process that the finance team needs, that your ownership team needs, that your corporate structure needs. Maybe most of that now is being taken care of on the back end, shearing time off of what it would take the team to do that, so that they're there to focus on what the guest is looking like. So maybe that utopian future really is just that I'm standing in front of you from a hospitality perspective, giving you an amazing experience, and all of that noise that I have to do throughout the rest of my day is taken care of, or at least a large part of it is, such that we can continue the experience.
I think you're spot on there. And I think the airline reservation agent made me think of something just now, but I was talking to the person leading innovation for one of the big Las Vegas resort companies, and it said something that I wasn't expecting, but they're actually doubling down on some aspects of those human or these call centers where they make reservations, but they're building some really interesting things behind the scenes to put a lot of power in the hands of the person making the booking, where they're connecting their systems. And so they have, incredible insight, kind of faster than any one of us could pull up just on demand, but they get a sense of all their preferences, but also are looking at ways to use artificial intelligence to plug into what's going on among kind of their entertainment offerings, their food and beverage, and they can provide these really interesting hyper personalized recommendations, but it's a person doing it, but they're seeing on their screen instantly like, oh man, there's this new chef that just came in here, and I know you like this over here. So it's this human experience powered by AI that I wasn't expecting, but I was like, this sounds amazing. And I think there could be some opportunities there.
So, and I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but one of the other, I think, misconceptions out there, and maybe this is, maybe this isn't, I think it just depends on how deep you're going to take it, but that AI is completely unaffordable at this point in time. Because from the research I've done, it's depending on what you're looking to do, again, having the refined scope and understanding exactly what you're trying to execute, it's actually not too out of reach for most organizations. Is that correct?
I believe so. I think it depends a little bit on kind of where you're thinking of buying AI powered technology. Increasingly AI is going to be powering the systems that we use, and so I think the opportunity here is to really ask your technology partners or prospective partners how they're using AI, and really kind of pushing for use cases. Don't get sort of caught up in just AI hype, because I had so many operations leaders tell me that every tech provider was pitching them as having an AI powered product. And so push beyond just this sort of mentality of check the box, do you have AI powered tech? AI is simply smart tech that is recognizing patterns, making recommendations, speeding up processes, right? So maybe use that language. How is tech doing that for you? And so across your business, if you're working in F&B, if you're working in revenue management, ask for specifics about how that works, and talk to your peers around how that's worked for them. But yeah, is it too expensive? I don't I believe the business benefits of AI-powered technology will exceed the costs of that. And that's something that you need to check for your business. But I think there's real opportunity from the applications that I've seen across these different functional areas. I certainly see that in areas like revenue management, talking to a lot of hotel owners and seeing a massive ROI on investments there. And I think the same is true in other areas of the business.
Well, I think that's great. And, hopefully what this conversation does is gets people thinking, not so much about, 2205 or whatever, but we start thinking about what we could do today in 2023 to be able to support our teams, create those better experiences, connect more of the dots, and work with our partners to be able to drive that change with what we currently have, introduce little bits here and there, but not think of AI as this out of reach, impossible technology that, will save the world when it gets implemented, but probably never hit hospitality, right? Because I think it's already here, and it's just how we embrace it and what we do with it.
I think you're spot on, and I might leave you with something that that Raul Moranta, who's the chief commercial officer at Remington, told me that's really been bouncing around in my head since he told me. But it's kind of two-part advice. One was kind of know thyself better than Spotify and Netflix, right? So kind of know how you're engaging with the world, your guests, because that's going to inform how you end up using AI. And this is a person who's been working in and around revenue tech or AI-powered revenue tech for a long time. So he's seen the power of this in action. And as a leader at a hotel company now, what he told me is the importance of leadership is going to be more important than ever. Because if you think about revenue or these other areas of hospitality, eventually AI or any kind of technology no longer provides a competitive advantage. It's your ability to lead well, to inspire people, that is going to come up with creative applications for AI or any other sort of technology. So fundamentally, hospitality is and will always remain a human-focused business. But the way that we do that in this new, increasingly AI-powered world is deep empathy for our others, our associates, our guests, and thinking about how technology can help us serve them and provide better hospitality experiences.
I think that's absolutely awesome. And I'm not going to try to top that or put anything on top of it. I think that's great. So Josiah, we're wrapping up here. Where can people find you, find out more about what you've done?
Yeah, just hoteloperations.com. Have the guide up there right on the homepage. But I really enjoyed this conversation, Chris, and hopefully our listeners got some value out of it too. And I just encourage anybody listening to this to, let us know on LinkedIn or in the comments on YouTube, what your thoughts or questions are. I think we're all in this together. We're all learning what the opportunities are. And I think we can succeed as an industry by sharing what we're seeing, what we're learning, what's working for us. And so, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat about this today.
Love it. First time repeat guest, and hopefully I have you on here again, Josiah. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Talk soon.